Welcome to You Ain't Imagining This, where we see it, we name it, and we confront it. I'm Amma Robin, your host and teller for this podcast journey. Today, we're stepping into one of my favorite places. You already know how much I love books and how much I love reading. But this episode is not just about books or just about reading. It's about belonging. We're going to a bookstore, but not just any bookstore, a Black-owned bookstore. A Black bookstore isn't just a store. It's a sanctuary. It's a hub of knowledge, a space of memory and meaning, a revolution in the making. It's where we don't have to shrink, explain, or justify who we are. I'm bringing you into this space, not just to read, but to remember. Not just to learn, but to build. And if you're new here, or if something resonates today, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey we take, because I definitely want to take it with you. Let's go inside. The Black-owned bookstore, a Village episode. The bell above the door jingles as I step inside, and something happens. My shoulders relax. My breath slows down. For once, I'm not scanning the room. I'm not bracing for suspicion. I'm not shrinking myself to make others comfortable. This space moves with me, not against me. Welcome to a Black-owned bookstore. The scent of fresh pages and well-worn classics linger in the air, mixing with something warm, maybe a hint of burning sage near the register or the rich spice of chai swirling in someone's mug. This is more than a bookstore. It's a living, breathing community. It's familiar and comforting and safe. I run my fingers along the spines of books stacked high on wooden shelves. But here, unlike the mainstream bookstores where Black books are buried in a dusty African American studies corner, Black literature is the foundation. It's the heartbeat. Reading the names on the book spines just took my breath away. James Baldwin, Octavia Butler, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Bell Hooks, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Audre Lorde, Keisha Lemon, Toni Cade Bambata, Jason Reynolds, Alexis Pauline Gomes, Hanif Abdurraqib, Jacqueline Woodson, Jericho Brown. These authors are not just side notes here. They take center stage exactly where they belong. They're family. They're familiar. I don't have to search to find myself on these shelves. From across the room, I feel the elder behind the counter watching me with knowing eyes. Usually, I'm uncomfortable when store owners watch me in their stores. In mainstream places, their eyes can carry distrust, concern, even judgment. I know to keep my hands visible, to step away from the books, to not linger too long in any one spot. But this is a Black bookstore, and I don't need any of those survival tactics. Here, the elder's gaze feels like a welcome. You look like someone in need of a good book. I smile, nodding, because it's true. But what I also want is a reminder that I am not alone. and I had already found that. At a nearby table, a small group has gathered, not just shoppers. This is community. Elders, teens, activists, writers, parents flipping through picture books with their toddlers. They're all here. It's another reminder that this is not just a bookstore. It's a meeting place, a safe space, a hub of ideas and activity. A young woman speaks first, her voice tight and controlled. My professor said that we should just move past race, that racism is just a distraction now. He said Black people should focus on real problems, he said in quotations. An older man scoffs. They love telling us when to stop talking about our own oppression, don't they? Another voice, this time a young woman with the energy of a teacher, her beautiful locks flowing down her back, speaks up. That's intentional, she says. Silence is part of the system. They erase our voices the same way they erase our history. They gaslight us until we start questioning ourselves. I nod because I have felt all that too. The erasure, the exhaustion, the quiet replacement of truth with something else. And the anger that rises when they act like we imagined it. A little girl comes running and tugs at her grandmother's sleeve. Big Mama, did Black people really invent stoplights? The grandmother laughs softly, tying the child's shoes. Yes, baby, Garrett Morgan, and he invented a whole lot more. But you won't hear about that in school. The little girl's eyes widen. What else did we invent? She asks. The room chuckles gently, but no one brushes her off. Another elder appears at the counter and clears his throat. That's why spaces like this exist. That's why we read. That's why we remember. Because knowing our history is an act of power and defiance. He turns and pulls a worn copy of The Miseducation of the Negro from the shelf, and he slides it across the counter. My eyes widen, and I hold my breath. Again, naturally, my breath is taken away. This book, The Miseducation of the Negro, is nearly impossible to find in most bookstores. But here, multiple editions sit clearly displayed on the shelf behind him. He continues, Carter G. Woodson wrote this book in 1933. And tell me, doesn't it still sound like we're being miseducated today? That's not by accident. He flips through the pages and stops at a highlighted passage and reads, When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. The words land hard, not just because they're true, but because they are still happening. The room falls quiet, a moment of collective recognition. Then, one of the teenagers sitting at the edge of the group speaks up, her voice steady but reverent. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. She pauses, then adds, Octavia Butler wrote that in The Parable of the Sower, 1993. The elder looks at her, his eyes sharp but warm. There's a long pause, then he nods, a slow, knowing gesture of respect. A small smile tugs at the corner of the teenager's lips. I watch this interaction, realizing that wisdom moves in both directions. And I stand frozen, listening to my favorite quotes from the two classic books. written 60 years apart. The room stills again. I look around and realize this is a moment of collective recognition and respect and learning. Everyone in the room knows we're not just surrounded by books. We're surrounded by something deeper. This place holds us. Then slowly, the conversation shifts from frustration to strategy, from exhaustion to empowerment. Because here, in this bookstore, no one is alone in the fight. A toddler giggles from the children's corner. A group of elders sip coffee and shake their heads at today's headlines, telling stories of marches they joined, battles they fought, and history they've lived. And they laugh together. Teenagers are flipping through books and laughing, and half watching their phones. The bookstore hums with life, connection, belonging. This is not just a place where books are sold. This is a place where we build, where we connect, where we thrive. I've saved my favorite part for last, the events calendar. It's displayed on the wall in the corner. Sure, I could check the calendar on their website, but there's something about seeing the calendar in person posted on the wall. Some people have left small notes on it, a bold fist, a heart, or a handwritten message like, "Hope to see you there," or "Aquaba, welcome." And the events, they're everything. Story time for kids and families, where little ones not only listen to stories, but also leave with a good book. Elder time meetings, sometimes featuring a health expert, sometimes just a round table for coffee and conversation. Slam poetry nights, storytelling evenings, jazz concerts, book readings to introduce new artists and authors. And one of my absolute favorites, Saturday morning potluck breakfast, a beautiful nod to the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program, and a nourishing meal with a family-like feel. I still remember the potluck breakfast I went to one Saturday morning. We had sweet potato pancakes. Someone read a Langston Hughes poem, and one of the elders reminded us to keep showing up for ourselves and for each other. We gotta keep showing up and checking in. These events bring regulars and newcomers alike. Again, this is a Black-owned bookstore. And this bookstore doesn't just sell books, it creates a true community. As I stand there reading the calendar, I realize something. This is more than a bookstore. This bookstore is not just preserving our history, it's making history. Every event, every conversation, every book passed from hand to hand, every breakfast served is part of something bigger. This is not just a store, it's a movement, and we're all a part of it. This is a Black bookstore. Now it's time to go beyond the story. This is Alma Robin. Asante Sana. Thank you for being here. If you've been listening to my podcast, my Espresso Talk Today podcast, you already know I love books. I love reading. And bookstores, well, bookstores feel like home to me. But Black-owned bookstores, they are something deeper. They are what I call soul spaces. I've talked about soul spaces before. These are places where we can just be, fully, freely, unapologetically Black. Not long ago, I found myself in a Black bookstore near Howard University. I had a stack of books in my hands, and I wasn't yet ready to decide, just yet, which I wanted to buy or if I wanted to buy them all. So I sat down in a reading nook. The couch was soft, the room was quiet, the vibe was calm. Then I realized an hour had passed, and I was still sitting there, still flipping through pages, still breathing easy. And guess what happened? Nothing. No one was staring at me. No one was asking what I was doing. No one had followed me. No one had acted like I had overstayed my welcome. I was welcome. I was safe. I was in a Black space. That's the power of a Black bookstore. And not just the bookstore itself, but what it represents. Because Black bookstores are part of a much larger tradition. They're part of the tradition of Black spaces. So what am I talking about? Okay, I'm glad you asked. Black markets, Black restaurants, Black hair salons, Black barbershops, Big Mama's kitchen, the front porch, the block, the basement, the community center. These are spaces where we gather, where we check in, where we get free, and where we get fed. And they are places worth protecting and worth cherishing. We know what happens in spaces that aren't built for us. We're followed, we're searched, questioned, judged, sometimes even handcuffed. And when it comes to learning, we've seen how access has been stripped away. Black reading spaces have always been under threat. In fact, so many of these Black spaces are under threat. Remember, reading was once criminalized for us. Books have been banned. Books are still being banned. Libraries have been defunded. Bookstores have been shut down in our neighborhoods. Even now, we watch mainstream bookstores roll out a quote-unquote Black books table in February, only to pack it away in March. This is not random. It's not accidental. It's what I call systemic. And that's why Black bookstores matter. They're not just stores. They are classrooms. They're community hubs. And they're healing grounds. They're archives and living rooms. They're places where we learn and where we unlearn. They're places where no one asks you to prove yourself before you sit down. Black bookstores are about survival. They're about memory and joy and truth and power. So what can we do? We need to protect our Black spaces, and we need to focus on protecting our Black spaces of learning, our spaces of reading, our spaces where we gather and where we feel safe. So how can we protect Black bookstores? Glad you asked. Number one, show up. Just show up. Visit a Black bookstore. Spend time there. Number two, support them. Buy the books. Donate books to them. Volunteer. Bring a friend. Give a good review. Number three, spread the word. Post about it in social media. Talk about it to your friends, to your students, your family, your kids, your elders. Number four, organize. Host a reading group. Suggest an author event. Number five, protect them. Ask your city where the library funding went. Demand more funding for library and reading spaces. Push for public spaces that serve our communities. And these aren't just nostalgic spots to romanticize, but that's okay too. They're active sites of resistance, memory, and movement. Every time we pass down a book or a quote or a story, every time we gather, listen, and share, we're building something. We're claiming the space. We're shaping our legacy and we're fighting back. So hold tight to the black spaces in your life. And if there aren't enough, build more. Asante Sana, thank you for being a part of this with me. Thank you for going beyond the story with me. And if this episode spoke something to you or awakened something in you, if it made you feel seen and reminded you of something you love or helped you imagine something new, please don't keep it to yourself. And I encourage you to subscribe to You Ain't Imagining This wherever you listen to your podcasts. Share this episode with someone who values Black spaces and Black stories. I'd love to hear about your favorite Black bookstores, where you visit or even have a public library in your community, or the spaces where you feel free. I'd love to hear all about that. So leave me a comment, send me a DM, start a conversation. This is how we build. Because when we gather and when we read, when we remember, we're doing more than imagining. We're creating and reclaiming and living our legacy. But still, it starts with the imagining. Because when you see it, you can achieve it. Asante Sana for listening and for being here. And remember, this is ours and it always will be. Keep supporting the spaces that hold us, because this is more than a bookstore. Until next time, peace and power. I'm Amma Robin. Ashe.